All right. Hello and welcome everyone to our office hours webinar for BrainHQ today. We're so glad that you could be joining us. My name is Stephanie and I will be one of your hosts for today's webinar. My co-host today is Dr. Henry Mahncke. Henry, you want to say hi?
Hey folks, nice to have everyone here today.
Now, for those of you who are joining one of these webinars for the first time, Henry uh, is a very repeat host here on the webinar series. He has earned his PhD in neuroscience at the University of California, San Francisco, and that's where he originally studied brain plasticity with our co-founder, Dr. Michael Merzenich. He has been CEO of Posit Science here since 2011. So let's take a look at the agenda for today. All right, so Henry is going to go ahead and give a presentation about setting goals and setting reminders for yourself, and maybe a little bit about our new feature about setting up training goals with friends. And then we are going to open up the floor and take live questions from you all. So if at any point during the presentation today you have any questions, you can use the Q&A button on the Zoom control panel to submit a question. We will try to answer as many of those questions as we possibly can, but there are only two of us here today. So if your question doesn't get answered, or if you would like a follow-up question with a little more of an in-depth answer, maybe personalized to you, you can also email our support team, support@brainhq.com. For some general information about BrainHQ, a lot of the questions that we're going to be answering today also have helpful articles, sort of like a frequently asked questions section on our site. You can find that at support.brainhq.com. And the last thing that I wanted to mention before we get started is that today's presentation is being recorded and it will get posted to our YouTube channel sometime next week. If you want to be notified when that video goes live, you can head on over to youtube.com/brainhq and subscribe there in order to get a notification when that video goes up. All right, I think without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Henry. Henry, you want to go ahead and take over the screen share?
I will take over the screen share and we will dive right in. So hey, thanks everyone for joining us on this first office hours of the year. And hey, what a wonderful way to kick off the new year with a commitment to brain health and brain training. And hey, we're going to talk very specifically today about how you can kick your year off by setting the right goals for yourself in BrainHQ. How much do you want to train? Where do you want to get to? And we're also going to talk about a very cool new feature in BrainHQ that helps you train with friends and family members, which can really help you stick to your New Year's goal. So I'm going to talk, I hope, for just about 15 or 20 minutes at most. And then, as Stephanie said, we want to kick it over to you for all the questions you might have around how much you should train and how you should set goals and how you can stick to it with BrainHQ. But let's start with the basics. Hey, how much should I train? And how often should I use BrainHQ? Well, actually, brain training, it turns out, is a lot like physical exercise. It turns out that, if you've ever not getting enough exercise, probably the first step a doctor or a friend has ever told you is to get off the couch and start getting used to walking around your neighborhood. And after you get accustomed to that for a little while, you can up your goals with physical exercise. And, a doctor will usually tell you should aim for about maybe 90 minutes of physical exercise a week and a couple times a week. And it turns out that training with BrainHQ is very much like that. If you are just getting started, if you're joining us for this webinar because maybe you signed up for BrainHQ over the holidays and you want to learn more about it, well, we encourage everyone to start nice and easy. For the first few days in BrainHQ, the way BrainHQ works is it's going to give you just one new exercise a day at first. In fact, your first training session is only 5 minutes long and they grow slowly after that. Now, most people on this webinar have probably been through those first few training sessions already, but I mentioned that in case you're thinking about telling a friend about BrainHQ. It's very easy to start, just like getting off the couch for the first time and going for a walk around the neighborhood. But as you progress, what we want to see people get to over time is training, maybe a couple times a week, let's say 3 times a week for 30 minutes per day. That would get you to a recommended goal of training your brain for about 90 minutes a week, pretty much exactly like what we like to see with physical exercise. And then over time, some people actually choose to train more than that, and that's great. We have a lot of people who are using BrainHQ 3 to 5 times a week. We see people training for 30 to 60 minutes per day for some of those sessions, and that's wonderful. But it's also fine to be right here in the blue zone and be training your brain a couple days a week for about 30 minutes a day. And one of the reasons we say that is to spread out your brain training over a couple days is because sleep is actually really important for brain plasticity. Sleep is really important for the way your brain rewires itself to get stronger and sharper as a result of using BrainHQ. And also, it's okay to train for a while. Let's say you get training and you're training for a few weeks or a few months, and then take a break for a while and then return to training. And I'm going to talk more about both of those issues just so people get really comfortable with the idea of how to train with BrainHQ and get comfortable with the idea of taking some time off. So where do these guidelines about how much to train with BrainHQ come from? Well, like everything we do at Posit Science, these guidelines come from research studies. And you know, what's interesting about the research studies that have been done with BrainHQ is all kinds of training doses have been used. So for example, we have seen some of the original studies with the BrainHQ exercises done where people trained just twice a week, but they trained pretty intensively. They trained for about an hour for each of those sessions. So that's one way to go about it, and that's great. But we have seen other studies where people train 3 times a week for 30 minutes per session. We've seen studies where people train 4 times a week for 40 minutes a session, 5 times a week for 60 minutes a session. And what I want to say is what that tells us from the research is there is no perfect answer for everyone about exactly how much to do your brain training. And what you should focus on is build a schedule that's right for you. Because what I want to see people do is build a schedule that's right for themselves so they start BrainHQ and they stick with it. It's not worth it to pick a schedule that's too demanding and as a result you just never train. It's worth it to pick a schedule that can really fit into your day and your week and your life so that you can stick with BrainHQ over time. And to go back to that issue about why we recommend training several days a week. You know, sometimes people come to me and they say, well, gosh, maybe I should just train 2 hours, once a week. I'll just get it all done with on a Sunday afternoon. But we don't recommend that. And the reason we don't recommend that is because sleep is so important for driving brain change. Let's say this is you and you're training on BrainHQ on your iPad. You're sitting in your easy chair, as you can say. When you train for the day and then you're done, then you go to sleep and you wake up the next day and you train some more. That's great. And then you go to sleep the next day. And then the next day after that, maybe you train on your laptop and go to sleep. And then maybe you're training on your phone when you're out and about. It's critically important that you're sleeping each time between these bouts of training. And the reason that is because while you're asleep, your brain is actually rehearsing and practicing everything that you learned during the day. Put another way, while you're sleeping, if you trained that day, your brain is redoing that BrainHQ training just to make sure it gets cemented in. And that's why we'd rather see people train a couple minutes over a number of days in the week rather than doing all the training just in 1 day per week. So spread it out like that a bit. That's good for your brain and that's good for learning because sleep helps consolidate that learning in your brain. So the other point I want to make about building a schedule like this is that it is okay to take a break and then come back to training. Sometimes people come to me and they say, well, gosh, do I need to do BrainHQ every single day for the rest of my life? And we absolutely have BrainHQ people who are doing BrainHQ every single day. That's fantastic. But hey, if that doesn't work for your schedule, that is completely fine. Just like exercise, you don't have to exercise every single day. You just have to build up some reliable habits over time. So for example, we have people like this. If you've used BrainHQ, you might recognize this as your training calendar, which you can get to from the Progress tab. Each row here represents a day of the week. This is Sunday, then Monday, and then Tuesday and Wednesday, so that each column here is a week of training. And here's a person who's training almost every single day, very impressive. But this is also perfectly fine. Here's a person who's training several days a week, which is exactly like we've recommended. And then, hey, they take a break for a couple weeks in here. And hey, maybe it was the holidays and they took some time off. Maybe they had a vacation or some family in town. That is okay. What's important is that, hey, after you take that break from BrainHQ for a while, that you, like this person did, eventually get back on and get back to your brain training. But it's fine to take breaks for a while. And in fact, it's important because you might have other issues that come up in your life. And what I don't want to see is I don't want to see people take a break and then think, oh, because I've taken a break, there's no point to getting restarted. I've already lost everything that I've gained. That's not the way BrainHQ works, and it's not the way the brain works either. It's fine to take that break for a while and then come back to it. So I hope the image you're getting from that is it's okay to build a schedule that works for you. 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week is fine. Train for 10 or 15 minutes at a time, train for half an hour or 45 minutes. Just try to get your total training over time up to maybe 90 minutes per week, and you'll be doing BrainHQ very well. So what do we see in the real world? Well, when we look at BrainHQ data, what we see is the typical person who's using BrainHQ is training 2 to 3 times per week, exactly like what we'd like to see. And we see that the typical person who's training, when they sit down to do their brain training, they're training about 20 to 30 minutes per session, which again, exactly what we want to see. And hey, that adds up over time. The most important studies using BrainHQ have shown benefits to brain health and improving cognitive function that are visible to scientists with only 10 to 18 hours of brain training spread out, frankly, over several years. So you don't have to do tons of BrainHQ to get benefit, but you do have to set that pattern and stick with it. And that's such an important thing to think about at the beginning of the year, because many of us are thinking about our New Year's resolutions, or if not, we're not making resolutions, we're at least thinking about our goals for the new year. So how do we actually go about doing this in BrainHQ? Well, to do that, I'm going to shift over and I'm going to show you my BrainHQ screen. Give me just a moment here. And from that, we will talk a little bit about how you can do this on your own. Perfect. Fantastic. So this is me logged into BrainHQ, and a couple things to show you right off the bat. First of all, when you log into BrainHQ, one of the first things it shows you is how much training you've done this week and what's your goal for the week. So this progress widget here tells me I've done 1 level of BrainHQ so far this week. And it shows down here that my goal is to do 18 levels of BrainHQ this week. And as I finish those levels, this red circle is going to slowly fill in, and I'll know when I'm done when it's all the way full. So BrainHQ is already helping you keep track of how much training you've done and how much you want to do. But how can you set that goal? Well, if you want to set a specific goal, go right over to your profile here and click on your name and then click on goals. And this is going to help you set a weekly training goal. So in your profile here, you can see your weekly goal, and I've set my weekly goal to about 18 levels per week. Now, BrainHQ guesses that that's going to take me about 45 minutes of training per week. So you can see, hey, that's not a whole lot, but I've set my level like that because I want each time I log into BrainHQ for it to give me a short amount of training so I can enjoy that session and push through it over the course of a busy day. Now you can set that goal to whatever you want it to be by clicking on that change goal button, and you'll see this little dialog box come up here. And I've set my goal to 18 levels a week, but if you want to train more than that, just click the plus button and you can increase your training goal here. And as you can see, for example, now I've set it to 36 levels a week. And BrainHQ now thinks that will give me about an hour and a half of brain training a week, which is actually where we'd like to see people get to over time. But maybe you're just starting, maybe you feel like you don't need that much. You can set it right down to something lower, like 12 levels per week, which BrainHQ will think will take you about 30 minutes per week. And that is a perfectly fine goal to get started on as well. Again, what's really important is you start doing BrainHQ and you're building a schedule that works for you. So we'll go back to my level here. We'll set it at 20. And you can now see I've set my goal to 20 levels. Now, what effect does that have in BrainHQ? Well, let's go back to that dashboard. And you see now this has been updated. BrainHQ knows I want to do 20 levels this week, and I've done only 1 so far. Now, how does that play out here? Well, many people in using BrainHQ use the personal trainer right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this personal trainer button. And in the personal trainer, BrainHQ actually picks out the exercises for me each day, and it gives me the exercises that BrainHQ thinks are exactly right for me. So for example, today, BrainHQ wants me to do double decision, and this is a level I've done before. It wants me to come back to it. It's a repeated level. But it also eventually wants to get me to this level of memory grid. And you can see it says 19th level here. That would be a new level of memory grid for me. So the personal trainer is picking out these exercises. But the personal trainer also wants to get me to my goal of training each week. And the way it does that is you can see this kind of ring around the current exercise here. And you can see this ring just has a little tiny bit of dark gray in here. And that means I haven't started my training yet for the day, and so it hasn't filled in. But as I complete the levels in the personal trainer over the course of training for today, that's going to fill in until it fills up the whole circle, and that's how I will know that I'm done for the day. Now, I'm not going to have you sit for a whole personal training session for me today. Let me go back to my PowerPoint slides for just a minute, and I will show you how that looks. So as I showed you, when you start for the day, that dark circle around the current exercise has just started to fill in. But after I finish my first level, at the end of my level, it'll tell me that I'm completed, and you can see this circle is now filled in some more. That shows that I'm partway through with my session for the day. And then when I finish a few more of the exercises from the personal trainer, you can see I've now completed this particular level, and I'm now halfway through for the day. And when I've finished all the levels for the day, you can see my circle is all the way full, and the personal trainer tells me that I'm done for the day. So how many levels does the personal trainer want me to do each time I sit down? Well, the personal trainer follows a very simple rule. It assumes that if you want to do, for example, 18 levels in the week, that you want to do about a third of them each time you sit down. So if you set your goal for 18 levels in the week, when you start the personal trainer, it will get you through 6 levels of training on each session. And if you do that 3 times a week, well, you'll achieve your goal. And as you do the personal trainer, as you finish those levels one by one, this circle is going to fill in, and you can check to see when you're done for the day. So again, very easy way to set up your goals, very easy way to make sure that each time you sit down, you are training in exactly the right way. Just choose the personal trainer and have it fill in that circle for you as you do your brain training. It'll tell you when you're done, and you can go on and off about your day. So that's a wonderful way to use BrainHQ. But let me offer one other suggestion that might be relevant for some people as they're starting the new year. Some of you, as you start the new year, might want to go about setting a goal that's, as much as it is around using BrainHQ, you might want to have a goal that's around improving your brain performance in ways that you can see. And I'm back to showing my BrainHQ screen now, and I want to show you how to do this. So if your goal is to, say, get better at specific exercises, the way you can do it is this. You can go to your BrainHQ dashboard at any time by clicking BrainHQ and click on Explore All Exercises. And when I do that, as you may have seen in your own BrainHQ, you can see all of the brain training exercises here. And let me go to one in particular. I'm going to pick this memory exercise called syllable stacks, which is right here. And I'll go ahead and click on it. And if you've ever picked an individual BrainHQ exercise, you've seen this screen. This is the screen for the BrainHQ exercise syllable stacks, which is a memory training exercise. And each of these little squares here represents a different level in BrainHQ. And some of them, you might hear certain kinds of words that you're trying to remember, and other ones you'll hear different kinds of words that you're trying to remember. And of course, every BrainHQ exercise is made up of many, many, many of these individual levels. What I want to focus right now is over here on the left. This first group of brain training levels and syllable stacks, called stage 1, you can see that I've gotten a silver medal here. And that medal is given to me based on how many stars I have earned across these 4 levels in BrainHQ. You see that in the first level, I've earned 5 stars. That means I've done just about as good as I could possibly do. But on the last level, I've earned 3 stars. Now, 3 stars is pretty good, but if I practice more, I might get to 5 stars. And I can set a goal for myself of tracking my improvement here by trying to earn medals here. So I've earned a silver medal here. As I look at the next stage, I've earned a silver medal on this stage as well. Down here on stage 3, I've earned a gold medal. You see I got 5 stars in almost every level that I've done, which is pretty good. But if we go on to stage 4, you see I haven't earned any medal whatsoever yet, and that's because I haven't done all of the levels yet in stage 4. So another goal you can set for yourself is you can pick certain exercises that you like, that you find challenging, that you find interesting, that you find helpful, and you can work your way through to earn medals in these exercises, showing that you've improved your performance. And you might go through each of the stages and try and earn a bronze medal in each one at first, just to try out all the different brain training levels. Or you might pick a particular stage and say, I've gotten to silver already, but I want to come back and I want to get to gold. So I could, for example, pick this particular level in syllable stacks and really train hard on it, try to get from 3 stars to 4 or 5 stars, and I'd earn that gold medal. So that's a great way for sort of more advanced goal setting in BrainHQ to really pick certain exercises and double down on them and see your improvement on them. So let me pause for just a moment and go back to my PowerPoint. So the last thing that I want to talk about is a new feature in BrainHQ that we're just very excited about. So I think in my own life, I've noticed that, hey, any goal that I set for myself around physical fitness or nutrition or brain training, it's easier to accomplish that goal if I'm doing it with other people. So for example, in my physical health, I go to the gym pretty regularly. And I go to the gym, first of all, because they have nice equipment, but I guess I could have nice equipment in my own home if I wanted to. But one of the nicest things for me about going to the gym is seeing my friends there, and they're all exercising as well. And because we're all doing it together, that just reminds me that, hey, physical exercise is an important part of my life and helps me get out of bed in the morning and go and do it because I know I'm going to see friends like that. So we've built a new feature into BrainHQ recently that helps with exactly that. So when you log into BrainHQ, you're going to see a screen in your dashboard often that looks like this. You'll see this little icon that says Train with Friends. Click here to learn more. So I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and do that. When you click there, it's going to give you the opportunity to invite a friend or a family member. And if you're training with BrainHQ on your computer, it will help you email them. And if you're training with BrainHQ on your phone, you can send them a text message. And when you send them that message and they start BrainHQ, they're going to become, well, your brain training buddy. And what that means is that when you train, they're going to get a little reminder that says, hey, Henry trained today, maybe you should train also. And then when they train, you're going to get a little reminder that says your friend, maybe it's Stephanie, trained today. And hey, Henry, you should remember to train also. Now it's very privacy preserving. It doesn't say how much training you did. It doesn't say what exercises you did. It certainly doesn't say how well you did today. That's your own business. But all it does is send a reminder to your friend and let you get a reminder that, hey, both of you are doing brain training and that's something that's really important to stick with. Now, I have a lot of people I'm friends with in BrainHQ. I'm friends with my mom, which is wonderful. She lives 3,000 miles away from me, but it helps because when I train, she gets a little reminder. And then when she trains, I get a little reminder. So both of us stick with our goals better. So I encourage you to take a look at that, to think of someone in your life, a friend or a family, who you might enjoy training with and send them that invite. And the great news is that if they're not a BrainHQ user, they can start BrainHQ and use it completely for free. As you may know, people can register for BrainHQ and at no cost, they'll get 1 exercise per day, the Daily Spark. And that's a great way to have a training buddy, even if that's a person who isn't ready to subscribe to BrainHQ or just wants to learn more. So give that a try. And if you can't think of anyone that you might want to train with, but you still want to try this out, I would be delighted to be your BrainHQ training buddy. Just send us a note to support@brainhq.com and say, hey, I want to be training buddies with Henry. They'll add you to my friend list. And then, hey, when I train, you'll get a little reminder. And when you train, I'll get a little reminder. And we can help each other get this year off on the right foot and achieve our commitments to brain training and brain health with BrainHQ. So give it a try. I'd love to hear from you. So Stephanie, I'll stop there. Like usual, I talked just a little bit longer than I meant to, but why don't we kick it over and start to see if we have some questions from people about how to get set up and running in the new year.
Oh boy, do we ever. All right, well, first, thank you, Henry, for the presentation. It's great covering all of that information, especially that new social feature. It's really great to get a training team going just to help with the accountability for sure.
It is. I've really enjoyed it.
All right. So a lot of people with regards to goals have kind of questions about the personal trainer, if we want to touch on that. I know we have a whole webinar coming up in March that is going to be dedicated to an in-depth look at the personal trainer, but there are a couple of questions I think we might be able to answer before we get to that, so that way people don't have to wait. So folks want to know
I'd be happy to talk about it where we can.
Okay, fantastic. So we have quite a few people asking, when the personal trainer is trying to pick out an exercise level for you, how does it know what exercise level to pick? And how is that different from when you're on the exercise page and there's like the little pick for me button?
Oh, those are great questions. So in the personal trainer, every time you start the personal trainer, the first thing the personal trainer does is it looks at every single exercise and every single level you've done in BrainHQ. And on the basis of that, it kind of develops a kind of a cognitive profile for you. And so on that, it can decide what you should do next. So systematically, what the personal trainer is trying to do is it will eventually march you through every exercise, and it will eventually march you through every level in every exercise. On a given day, usually what the personal trainer wants to do is if you have levels you've done recently where the personal trainer thinks you can do better with practice, it will bring you back to those levels. So you might see a level called a repeated level. And in that case, what the personal trainer wants to do is it says, hey, your best score was maybe 2 stars, but I think you can get to 3 stars. So let me bring you this level again so you can practice at it some more and see if you can get to 3 stars. It also will look at the exercises you're currently doing and try to bring you a new level in that exercise. So maybe you have the Hawkeye exercise in your personal trainer, and maybe you did great on a Hawkeye exercise level 10 yesterday. The personal trainer might try to bring you Hawkeye level 11 today to give you a new variation on Hawkeye to try. And I guess what I should say as part of that is at any time, the personal trainer is only going to be giving you about 6 exercises. The personal trainer doesn't want you to spread yourself too thin by giving you all 20 exercises or 29 exercises at once. You know, if you were doing so many different exercises, your brain probably wouldn't be able to consolidate that learning like we talked about because you're just spread too thin. So the personal trainer is always trying to pick from about 6 exercises and either bring you back to levels to do better or give you new levels to move forward. And then from time to time, the personal trainer will take an exercise and say, hey, you've done enough of that. I'm going to introduce a whole new exercise for you. So it's kind of very sophisticated algorithm behind it. It's kind of like if you went to the gym and had a personal trainer, you know, they would have certain kinds of gym equipment they might want you to work on because they could see that you might need to get stronger or healthier in that way. And then every once in a while they would say, hey, that's enough with this kind of machine, and let's get you over to that kind of machine because we want to further to train your body. So that's exactly how the personal trainer works. Now, if you're picking an individual exercise, and I guess I could share my screen and we could look at this for a second. So if you're picking an individual exercise like syllable stacks, you know, as you say, there's a pick for me button. And what the pick for me button does is actually something pretty simple. It actually just takes you to the next level that you haven't done yet. So in that case, it would take you to this one here and give you a chance to give that a try. So that's just meant to make it a little simpler if you're coming to the screen and you're like, wow, there's a lot of levels here. Why don't I just do the next one? Is probably the best way to think about that. That's a little bit simpler than the personal trainer, which has this more sophisticated algorithm to say, hey, maybe Henry, you should come back to this one. You only got 3 stars on it, and if you had some more practice, you might get better. Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. All right, so Adele, as well as a couple of other folks, had this question. And you already sort of briefly touched on it, but it would be good to sort of go over it again. Instead of training 3 days a week, what about training every day for shorter periods of time? Is there a benefit to that? Or what are sort of the differences? Do we have any differences?
I think that's a great way to train. For a lot of people, the best way to have a habit is to do it almost every day. That way you just remember I'm supposed to do that every day. And if you're doing BrainHQ for almost every day, well then, hey, you might be able to sit down for, 15 minutes, 10, maybe 20 if you're up for it, and have those shorter training sessions. And that is a perfectly great way to do BrainHQ. We have studies that work like that. Actually, in particular, I might say we're currently working with a number of police departments across the country, where we're working with sheriffs and other police officers. And they're doing a particular implementation of BrainHQ, a particular set of brain exercises that are relevant to being sharp and making good decisions under pressure. And that's exactly how those law enforcement officers do BrainHQ. They're incredibly busy, as you might imagine. And so they're squeezing training a number of days a week, but they're typically training for just 10 or 12 minutes each time. And we are just getting great results back from that in terms of helping these law enforcement officers sharpen their brain and build overall better mental health and better brain resilience. So if you're the kind of person where the best way for you to stick to something is to do it almost every day, fantastic. I love to hear it, and make your sessions a little bit shorter for that reason.
Yep, perfect. Yeah, consistency is kind of key. And that's also something that we didn't really touch on this webinar, but one of the things, if you want to make BrainHQ more accessible to you, like for me, I train when I'm like on the bus, for example. And so one of the best ways for me to do that training is through the app. So we do have apps for both iPhones, iPads, Android devices. So all of your progress gets synced up across both the web and mobile versions of BrainHQ. So you can start training while you're out and about, maybe waiting in line for something, and then you can come back to your computer later and pick up right where you had left off. So that's another thing to keep in mind if you are trying to maybe train every day, or if you're just trying to get training in every now and then. All right, we have a couple of folks that wanted you to go back to the calendar, if that's all right, on your progress page. People want to know how you can read that calendar, what do the different color blocks mean, and how can you tell how many minutes you've trained in a particular week?
That is a great question. So let me go back and find that slide. Give me just a second here. Okay, great. The calendar screen, you can get to the screen in BrainHQ by clicking your Progress tab. The way to read this calendar is, it's probably easier to see here. On the top row, it says S for Sunday. The second row, it says M for Monday, then T for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday gets an R, and then Friday and Saturday. So each one of these columns represents 1 week. So the person here in this first week, they didn't train on Sunday, they did train on Monday and Tuesday, and then they didn't train again until Friday. And every day they trained, they get this kind of purple fill in for their calendar. And the more they trained, the darker it is. So for example, here's a Sunday where they trained a lot. You can see this really dark purple. And then here's a Monday where it's light purple. They probably only trained a couple levels. So it can give you this very kind of easy visual impression of, hey, how much have I been training? Have I been training every day, like this person almost? Or hey, am I taking it more, 2 or 3 times a week, like this to see? And then it also can help you see, hey, have there been gaps where maybe I took some time off, or I got distracted, or I just forgot about it for whatever reason. And it can help you then get back by seeing those gaps and saying, okay, it's time to get back in the saddle here and get back to my brain training. So, great question. Thank you.
Yeah. Now we have a couple of people wondering about what so when talking about progress in BrainHQ, you have like the amount of levels trained, but you also have sort of the gains over time. If you wanted to set a goal for yourself with gains over time, is there a way in BrainHQ to do that? Or if not, is there sort of a workaround that you would recommend to people?
Sure. A great way to set your goals for gains over time is to use the BrainHQ measure. And again, let me do my best to share my screen here and see if we have some luck. There we go. Fantastic. So, you can see, so again, you get to this by clicking on your progress tab. Here's a training calendar down here. Your BrainHQ, and I think we'll come back and talk about this more when we talk about progress features, but to give this question a good answer, your BrainHQ is a measure of, hey, how much, brain health and brain reserve, one might say, are you building by doing BrainHQ? And every time you train, as you do a new level or you improve your performance on a level you've done before, you're going to earn BrainHQ points. And so this can help you kind of see the benefits that you're getting. So here's a period of time, for example, where I was training a fair amount, and you can see my BrainHQ score was going up and up and up. And then here you can see I wasn't training so much, and BrainHQ points do kind of slowly wear off over time, just like every kind of benefit slowly wears off over time. And that can give you a good visual indicator that it's time to get back to BrainHQ. And if you're just starting BrainHQ, as you train regularly, your BrainHQ score is going to go up. And so as long as you see this going up regularly, hey, you're doing BrainHQ in a perfectly good way. If you train a lot, it'll go up fast. If you train a little moderately, it'll go up more slowly, but that's okay. But then most people get to a point where they've done a fair amount of brain training and their scores level off. And that's completely fine, right? Again, you might think about this like physical exercise. Maybe you've lost some weight, or maybe you've improved your cholesterol, and you're kind of keep doing it because you want to stay at your new, better level of physical health. BrainHQ gives you exactly the same kind of measure here. If you get to a point and then you're staying steady, well, that's great. You're doing enough brain training to maintain your brain health over time, and that's a wonderful goal. So again, if you're starting, train enough to make this go up pretty quickly. If you've been training a lot on BrainHQ, make sure you're training enough that it stays nice and steady. And hey, if it starts to go down, that's a symptom that, hey, you maybe need to get back on the horse and keep up with your brain training. Great question, thank you. And the personal trainer, I should say, is optimized so that if you're using the personal trainer, it's giving you the right levels and the right exercises to drive growth in that earlier phase of BrainHQ training and drive a maintenance of your brain health and your brain function and your brain AQ score as you keep going. So one more great reason to use the personal trainer.
All right. Speaking of the personal trainer, we have a couple of questions about what if you overshoot your weekly goal? Do you have to stop for the week, or can you continue training? Do you get credit for those extra levels?
That is a great question. Hey, overshooting your weekly goal is just fine. It is just fine. I overshoot my weekly goal all the time because I might do my personal trainer sessions, but then I might have a particular exercise that I like that I'm working on, and I go ahead and I just train on that particular exercise. So, you will see if for example, if your goal is 18 levels per week, but you do 22, that's exactly what your BrainHQ dashboard will show you. We'll say you've done 22 levels this week and your goal was to do 20. And that's fantastic. That's good for you. It's a little bit like you had an exercise goal, right? Maybe your goal was to run 3 times this week, and then on Saturday you just felt full of energy and you went for a 4th run. That's great. Occasionally people ask me, can I do too much BrainHQ? And I guess probably the answer has to be yes. You could do too much of anything. We haven't really ever encountered this issue in the real world. I want to emphasize we've never had people report that they've done too much BrainHQ and it somehow caused a problem for them. I do tell people that, if they ask me how much should I train in a day, I would say, hey, you probably don't need to train more than an hour a day, right? After that, wrap up for the day and come back to it tomorrow. But beyond that, I wouldn't say there's any problem. So I say this just because I wouldn't want anyone to worry that if they overshoot their goal, that's somehow bad. Overshooting your goal is perfectly good. And if you find you're overshooting your goal several times in a row, hey, maybe increase your goal a little bit. That's an exciting measure of progress itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, I recall when I first started training with BrainHQ that I sort of had to ramp up how much training I was doing per week. I started with a lower level because I was finding that I felt like my brain was sort of stretching and I was getting a little bit tired after a couple of exercises. So if you're new to BrainHQ and that's happening, that's totally fine. When you start feeling that sort of tiredness, go ahead and just call it there. That's okay. You can pick up training wherever you left off the next time you go back to BrainHQ. And you can work up to doing more exercises per sitting that way.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Yeah. All right. So we have a couple of people about asking about training strategies as far as like when in the day you should be training, and are there things that you can do before and after training that help to sort of maximize your benefits a little bit?
Yeah, that is a great question. And again, my answer here is going to be very personalized. And what I mean by that is I want you to train at a time of the day where you are feeling alert and engaged. And that might be different for different people. Some people like to train first thing in the morning because they get out of bed, they have a cup of coffee, they have breakfast. Yeah, I'm feeling with it. I'm feeling sharp. This is a great time to get some brain training in while my brain is feeling sharp and ready to change and pay attention. And that person might find by the end of the day, it's after dinner, I'm starting to drag, I'm kind of tired, and maybe that's not quite the right way to train my brain. But another person might be completely different. Some other person, the first thing in the morning, maybe they're just too busy, life is just too hectic, they're too distracted. When they want to get their brain training in is maybe mid-afternoon, right? They want to take a little break from work, or they want to take a little break from the other activities that they're having in the day and get in some brain training mid-afternoon. And many people actually tell me that helps perk them up for the rest of the day. As your brain training, of course, it's engaging your attention, it's engaging your reward systems, and releasing those neurochemicals in the brain actually helps them feel perked up. So, what I would ask each person to do is think about kind of your day and when is the time that you are feeling kind of sharpest and ready to go. Actually, I've been doing most of my brain training recently in the early evening. So after dinner, I'm kind of done with the day, but I want to read a book, I want to read a magazine, I want to do something like that. And I've been getting my BrainHQ training in at that point, which is a bit of a change for me, but it's been working pretty well because I've, had a day and I'm ready to stop doing work exactly. I'm ready to do something more fun and engaging. And even though BrainHQ is my work, I also find it fun and engaging, and that's a great time to get to it. The flip side is, again, your brain has to be engaged and ready to learn. As we were first building BrainHQ, we had a volunteer who was helping us test it. And he told me that he liked to do BrainHQ while he was watching TV, and he was typically having a glass of whiskey to sort of wrap up the day. And I remember telling him that I didn't think that his brain was going to get a lot out of BrainHQ if he did it while he was watching TV. BrainHQ really does require your full attention. And I also suggested, maybe he saved that glass of whiskey to celebrate when he was done with his brain training for the day, that probably wasn't the best thing to be doing while you were doing the brain training exactly. So it is true that BrainHQ is demanding, it's going to require your full attention. It's going to require your full performance. So in that sense, you want to do it at a time of the day where you feel like you can focus and you're not going to be, overly distracted because maybe you're watching the evening news, or, the kids are coming home from school, or you might have some other activity going on. So it's a good quiet time where you can focus. But everyone's brain is different. And so in that sense, find that right time for you. Great question.
Yeah, fantastic answer. So we had a couple of people that are asking, you had mentioned the Daily Spark, but some folks don't quite know exactly what that feature is. I was wondering if you could go back to sharing your browser screen and show where people could find the Daily Spark.
Yeah, I would be delighted to. Give me just a second, and let's see if I can get the screen sharing to work correctly this time. One sec. Daily Spark is a feature of the personal trainer. And the way that Daily Spark works, you can see that my personal trainer is set up. So if I'm using the personal trainer, I get an optimized schedule with Daily Spark. So what does that mean? Well, if I click my personal trainer, the Daily Spark is the first level that it gives you each day. And this is the one level that it is not picking it based on your entire history of your brain performance and your brain health. It's just picking it because today is Wednesday and double decision is the Daily Spark level for today. In addition, when you do the Daily Spark, it's going to give you fewer repetitions of that. You might think of it as just kind of a little warm-up exercise to get your brain going before you move on to the rest of the exercises per day. Now, I mentioned it because if you have a friend who's been thinking about trying BrainHQ but isn't sure if they want to become a subscriber or not, anyone can register for BrainHQ for free. It doesn't require a credit card. And when you register for BrainHQ, you will get that Daily Spark exercise for free every single day. You won't be able to do the rest of your personal trainer until you're a subscriber, and you won't be able to pick individual exercises until you're a subscriber. But this is a great way for someone who's thinking about brain training to kind of get familiar with BrainHQ and give it a try. So think about the Daily Spark as a demo exercise or a warm-up exercise or what have you. Now you can get the Daily Spark by picking your personal trainer focus. So up here, you can click on this where it says focus. And this actually lets you customize the personal trainer. And we have a whole session coming up on this, so I'm not going to say too much about it right now. But I will say that you can either pick the optimized schedule for you. This is the schedule that will go through every BrainHQ exercise and level eventually, and we'll work you through all of them as you go through it. Or you can pick the optimized schedule with the Daily Spark, and in which case we'll do exactly the same thing, but it will give you that demo exercise, that warm-up exercise to start each day with. Both of them are fine mechanisms of going about brain training. I have mine set to Daily Spark because I just like to have a reminder of what's the exercise that everyone who's doing BrainHQ, who's a free user, who's thinking about BrainHQ, is giving it a try. Good question. Thank you.
All right. So we do have a couple more questions about progress. I should have probably caught you before you went and stopped sharing the browser again.
We can go back. We can go back.
Yeah, can we briefly go back to the progress page with the AQ calendar again?
Yeah, I would be happy to. 1 second.
Once again, we're having a couple of people asking to clarify, what does BrainHQ reflect? And then also, oh, there was another question, but I lost it. I will come back to it, but
fine.
stay on the browser
I'll
page.
cover that first one
Yeah.
too. So BrainHQ is meant to be a measure of how much benefit, how much brain rewiring has BrainHQ done for you? Now, obviously, we cannot go directly inside your skull and look at your brain and figure out exactly what's been rewired in your brain. But we know from all the experiments we've done in the lab and in lots of clinical trials funded by the National Institutes of Health, we know, as a person goes through BrainHQ, how much brain plasticity are we delivering? How much brain rewiring have we delivered? How much internal brain learning has happened? So you can think about these BrainHQ points as basically a measure of how much brain change has been delivered in that way. Now, what that means is that as you do BrainHQ, if you do a new level for the first time, you're going to earn some BrainHQ points because your brain's never seen that level before, and just by doing it, your brain has been changed a little bit. And also, if you come back to an existing BrainHQ level, and maybe you earned 2 stars the first time, and the next time you went through it, you earned 3 stars, well, you get some BrainHQ points for increasing your performance, because increasing your performance also rewires your brain. So in that sense, as you do BrainHQ, as long as you're doing new levels, or as long as you're coming back to old levels and repeating them and increasing your performance, you're going to continue to earn BrainHQ points. Now, that being said, sometimes people ask me, what does 6,881 really mean? Hey, it's not a scale that, each point means something beyond each point means you have delivered some benefit to brain health. I think the most important way to use BrainHQ is not to worry about whether you have 3,000 points or 6,000 points, but to worry about, hey, are my scores generally going up as I start training? And then, hey, as I've become a regular BrainHQ user, can I keep them at a steady level and prevent them from declining? And that's the way we want you to use BrainHQ, is to kind of guide, well, exactly what we're talking about today. How much training should I do, and how often? So I hope that helps kind of that explanation of it. More
Yeah.
about the shape of this and make sure you're growing or maintaining. I wouldn't worry too much about the exact number of points you have. We don't expect people to compare their number of points. I have no idea how many points you have, Stephanie, and you may be seeing how many points I have for the first time. If I have 6,000 points and let's say Stephanie has 12,000, which wouldn't surprise me, she does a lot of BrainHQ training, it doesn't mean that Stephanie is twice as smart as I am or twice as good memory, although the second is almost certainly true. It just means that, hey, she's been doing BrainHQ in a very steady and an ongoing and regular way, and good for her. So don't worry too much about this, but just make sure the shape of this shows that you're getting benefit and keeping benefit as you go.
Yeah, I think it's more, I think I really like what you said about sort of maintaining that shape. And it's really a way for you to sort of track the maintenance of what we sort of call your cognitive reserve, your resiliency over time. So the other question that already kind of answers, somebody was asking why when they log in after the next day after training the previous day, why their number is lower.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Could
that
you
is
talk
a
a little
great
bit
question.
about decay?
Yeah, sure. So, when you train with BrainHQ, you're rewiring your brain to build a stronger brain, a more resilient brain, a better performing brain. But like everything, that wears off over time. Just imagine for a moment that you spend a month doing BrainHQ training and you trained really intensively. I mean, good for you, right? You'd be better at the exercises. You would probably start to notice changes in your everyday life in terms of your alertness and your sharpness and your memory. But let's say you didn't train again on BrainHQ for the next 10 years, right? Well, good for you for doing that training, but I think we can all imagine that whatever benefits you had gotten from BrainHQ, they would wear off slowly over the course of the next 10 years. Just like exercise, right? If I exercised really intensively for a couple of months, I'd be healthier, my heart would be better, maybe my cholesterol would go down. But if I stopped exercising, those benefits would slowly wear off. So BrainHQ points wear off slowly but steadily in exactly the same way. And what that means is that let's say you finished yesterday with, 6,800 BrainHQ points. When you come back tomorrow, that might have dipped to 6,075. Some of the old points you earned from a while ago have worn off. Excuse me. And that's fine, because what it means is, hey, I'm going to train today and I'm going to boost that back up. And that's exactly how we want you to use BrainHQ. Sometimes people come with a slightly more complicated concern, which is, hey, I trained a bunch today and my BrainHQ score still kind of went down. What does that mean? Again, perfectly normal. What it means is that although you may have trained a bunch today, a couple months ago, you trained even more than that. And so you earned a bunch of points a couple months ago and they're wearing off today. And even though you've trained today, you haven't quite fully kind of made up for the points that are wearing off that you earned a while ago. And so you can do one of two things. You can train a little bit more today, pick an exercise you like and do some levels, or just make sure you come back tomorrow and keep training to keep that core stable. And that's perfectly fine. But I say that because I don't want you to think that maybe you trained 5 levels today and your BrainHQ score went down. That doesn't mean it was a bad day for you. It's a great day for you because you've done some BrainHQ training. It just meant that you'd done a bunch of BrainHQ training a while ago and that's slowly wearing off. And BrainHQ wants you to know it's slowly wearing off, so you keep up your regular brain training to keep that BrainHQ score stable.
All right, fantastic. Wonderfully thorough. Thank you, Henry. We have a question. I'm seeing questions from people who I assume are maybe returning users to BrainHQ after a break, or if they are continued users and they're joining us in a webinar for the first time. There are people that are wondering how you should approach your training if you feel like you're stagnating. How can you adjust your goals? What should you maybe adjust your goals to, or how to do that? Do you have any recommendations for that?
Yeah, there's a couple things people can do. First of all, I do want to emphasize that for lots and lots and lots of people, hey, maintaining a healthy brain function is exactly a good goal, right? Maybe you have a friend who goes for a run regularly, and they might do the same run over and over again, but hey, that's a good run for them, and it's helping maintain their physical health. Maintaining, I would never want to say stagnating, but maintaining with BrainHQ is a very good goal for your brain health. Many of us, particularly as we get older, what we want to avoid decline. Our goal is to maintain our mental health and our brain health for as long as our physical health. So that's a great goal. But, you may be feeling like, hey, I've been doing the personal trainer for a while and I'm kind of getting the same exercises and I really want something novel that's going to challenge me. What I would recommend for that person, and I guess I can go back to my BrainHQ screen here one more time. It'll probably take a moment to come up, but let me know when it does. What I would recommend for that person then is to really start to think about performance goals for something where you can really push yourself. So what I mean by that is, hey, maybe pick 1 or 2 or 3 exercises either that you like particularly or that you frankly find very challenging and work your way through them systematically and get better at them. So again, I'll go back to this and you can see, I'll pick Eye for Detail to start with. This is one of my favorite exercises. I think the art and design team did such a beautiful job with this. If you've done this exercise, you might remember this is the one where butterflies or leaves are appearing around the screen and you have to look and see which ones are which. I love this exercise, and so many times when I'm using BrainHQ, I've come back to it and I've worked my way through every single level, and hey, I've gotten 5 stars on most of them. But a challenge that I can set for myself is I can come to these levels, for example, in these higher stages, and you can see I haven't really gotten to 5 stars on some of these. So one of the ways I can reinvigorate my own brain training is to come back and say, hey, I don't want to have a silver medal here. I really feel like I'm a gold medal kind of guy. I helped invent these exercises after all. And so I can come back and say, hey, I'm going to train intensively on this specific level because I want to get from 3 stars to 4 or 5. Or I want to train on this level with the same goal because I want to end up with gold there. Similarly, you can pick an exercise you perhaps haven't done that much of, and I've done a lot of most of these, but I think optic flow is a one. May have just finished this. Nope, there's a few left. You can see that I had exactly the same view, and I'm like, you know what? I've always found optic flow very challenging. I'm going to go and pick this exercise, and I'm just going to systematically work through every single level until I've just tried them all to make sure I understand them and see what they're doing. You can see that I have 2 left down here. And this is a way that for me, I can reinvigorate my brain training and keep it fresh as well. So instead of just doing the personal trainer each session, I could come and say, you know what? I want to bang out 3 more levels of optic flow. And then I'll probably want to come back to these and again increase my score like 2 stars. Well, I feel like I can probably do better than that, Stephanie, with some practice. So I'll come back and I'll train on that level 5 or 6 times and just try to get that score to where I want it to be. So that could be a fresh way to keep your brain training interesting and challenging for you.
All right, and I know we are coming up on the top of the hour, but I do have one final question that might be a good wrap up here.
Sure.
A lot of people are wondering, how long into your training before you maybe start feeling some benefits from the training? Do we have any scientific studies that sort of have more answers about that?
It's a great question. And again, I'll turn to physical exercise to a metaphor, right? If you've just started a physical exercise program, the first few days that you go for a run or go for a swim or go for a walk, you're probably just going to feel tired at the end of those days, right? But hey, if you do that for a month or two, you might start to notice that you feel a little bit stronger, or have a little bit more endurance, or a little bit more energy. And I would say BrainHQ is the same way. What the studies have shown us is that, hey, after about 10 hours of training, which people are typically doing over the course of a month or two, lots of people are starting to notice benefits at that point. So it's not right off the bat, it's not in the first week or two. And hey, if you've been training for a few weeks, but maybe you've only been training once or twice per week, and maybe you only train for 5 or 10 minutes, you're going to have to do a little bit more than that to rewire your brain. But for people who are training a couple times a week and are hitting that goal of 90 minutes or more per week, we pretty reliably in the studies see that people are noticing changes and noticing benefits after about 10 hours of training, which is typically over 2 months. But I want to describe those benefits a little bit, because I think sometimes people come to this and they're like, oh my gosh, my whole life is going to be 1000% better. And hey, that does happen to some people. They come and they tell us. But more commonly what people come is they tell us that they're noticing more subtle changes. Like, hey, when I'm out driving, I notice that I'm more alert and I see things out of the corner of my eye and I feel safer. Or I've talked to people who play a sport. I talked to a woman who played badminton once, and she said, hey, after about 2 months, what I noticed is that I could just see faster, right? I was sharper and better at the badminton game because as a result of my better brain health. I talked to people who notice, for example, that, hey, their hearing feels more accurate, that they just, notice that, hey, I can just follow what the kids are saying, even though they talk faster a little bit better. And more commonly, we just feel people come back and they say, hey, I feel more alert, I feel more sharp, I just feel like I have fewer foggy days. And those are the kinds of changes that I would encourage you to kind of think about after a couple of months and those 10 or so hours of training. Hey, look back to kind of where you were and then try to compare that to today and keep track of it to notice that in your own way. And that's a perfect note to kick off the year. We're here at the beginning of the year. I think everyone has joined us, I hope, because they have great brain training goals for the new year. And I hope that these office hours has shown you how to set those goals. So configure your goal for each week to be a training goal that you can achieve. If you hit that goal regularly, come back and improve it. That's great, but we want everyone to get started. And we want everyone to have a friend doing brain training with them. So if you can think of someone in your life, a friend, a family member, maybe your mom, maybe your son, maybe your cousin, maybe the guy down the street, send them that invite, get them to start as well. They can start for free. And if you can't think of anyone, just email us at support@brainhq.com. They'll add you to my training team. I'd be delighted to have you as my BrainHQ buddy. So let's get started in the new year together well. Thanks.
All right, that sounds good. Couple of notes as we are wrapping up here. Our next webinar in February is going to be a BrainHQ Academy webinar where we're going to be talking about the neuroscience of sleep. So that's going to be a good one. And then, as I also alluded to, our next office hours webinar in March will be all about the personal trainer. So all of your questions about how the personal trainer picks exercises, how does it know which exercises you should be working on, how quickly does it rotate through those exercises, answers to those questions and more in March. Other than that, I think that wraps it up for me. Henry, did you have any parting words that you wanted to share?
We always try to take as many questions as we can. I know that many of you have asked a question and we probably haven't had a chance to answer it live. Feel free to email us at support@brainhq.com. We're always happy to take your questions, but in particular after these webinars. And with that, Happy New Year to everyone and happy brain training. Thanks.
Happy brain training, everyone. Bye.